we ended up getting in this long conversation about her telling me never put a hat on the bed. And she told me something interesting. She said, never discuss your dreams before 12 noon the next day, because Italians absolutely believe they will come true. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't heard that. I mean, the hat thing is universal, but
It is?
today, I'm so excited and happy to have the legendary, talented, beautiful Tera Patrick. Thank you for being here, Tera.
Yay, thank you for having me. I'm so honored you asked. And I'm so happy we finally got to do something together.
Yeah, I met you in 2014 at the Union Station at the event we did during 90 for 90.
Yes. And what number was I? Because I have to commend you. That's huge for you to put together. That was a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, we did it again in 2017, and we were thinking about doing it like maybe next year until COVID hit.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. It
yeah,
was
yeah,
it
yeah.
was so fun, and you really actually gave me the second opportunity I ever had to read in front of a live audience. So as an author, once you have to bring your book to life and to read out loud in front of people, it's a whole different atmosphere, but you made it so fun, and that was great. It was a great time.
It was so great to meet you. Like, and it's weird. Uh, Even being a fan of all your work because of when I met you, you were a writer reading from your book. I was like, oh, Tara Patrick, the writer. My brain
Ah!
automatically goes, Tara Patrick, the writer. So you're in Italy right now?
Yes. So I moved actually, transplanted from Los Angeles to Venice, Italy. And I moved here in 2015, and I absolutely love it. It's a huge life change. I literally actually I came here in 2015, and I just finished I'm about to finish the last chapter of a follow up to my first memoir, Snare
What?
Pixel. Yeah, I just finished it because I've kept a journal since that time, and it's just been nice for me. It's been cathartic, and it's been
Mhm.
really nice for me to talk about this journey in coming here, and the amount of love that I get on my website, on social media, just from people from all walks of life. They're like, let me get this straight. You took two suitcases and you left LA, and you now live in Venice, and it's been 5 years. And I'm like, yes, and you're going to read all about it. And I don't know if you're going to like it or love it or hate it, but I really wanted to share it with people because, as you know, I was in a different industry before. I was in a different
Yeah,
place in my life. So the
yeah, yeah,
transitions and everything, yeah, it's it's definitely otherworldly for sure.
listen, I get it when I get on Instagram. All I'm thinking is, what's Tara Patrick cooking today?
And I love to cook. Yes, I'm sorry if I've ever made someone once was like, I licked my phone because I put pad thai. My Thai food, I'm half Thai. Thai food is my favorite food to cook. And
Oh my
I'm
god.
not Gordon Ramsay. I don't plate beautifully, but I've thrown pad Thai, pad see ew. I've all this beautiful, tom kha soup, and people are like, stop putting food, at lunchtime on your page.
More modeling photos, no more food. You're making me hungry.
Exactly. They're like, more you, less pad thai.
Is it still on lockdown over there? What's going on in Italy?
So we had what I call a true lockdown that started from, I'd say, March 11th till May 1st. And the entire country, every region, every state, the entire country, we were not allowed to leave our house. We didn't leave our house. I stayed in my house for a solid 2.5 months. There was none of the chaos that I kind of saw going on back home. And when I say back home, I mean back in Los Angeles, because that is
Yeah.
the last city that I lived in. But, my friends were like, people are hoarding toilet paper, and, there hasn't been avocados at Trader Joe's for a month. And I mean, for us over here, of course, we had like the market's open and the pharmacy's open, and we would go out, one of us, to go get food and stuff, but it was pretty mellow and it was pretty mild. But as you know, Italy had the highest statistics and we were hit really
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
hard. But we're okay. Italians are
Good.
tough, man. Italians are tough. They've been through a lot, so
Yeah. Well,
we're good.
the reason we have you on, of course, because of the show, I messaged you and said, "Hey, Tara, quick, silly question. Have you had ghost experiences before?" And you were like, "Yes." So this is why. So we'd love to hear. I would love to hear a story that you have from your past about an ghost experience you've had.
So yes, I had an experience. Actually, it was the early part. It was about February in 2015, and I was shooting for a company called Fleshlight, which is
Mm,
based in Austin, Texas.
mm,
And they're a great company. I was one of the first models they ever worked with, and so it was just a nice trip to organize reshooting basically my product packaging. It was going to be 3 days. Uh, I was just expecting to do a really easy, simple glamour modeling shoot, end of story. So they booked me I arrive into Austin, Texas, and they booked me at a hotel that I'd never stayed at before, never heard of before, and it was called the Driskill.
mm.
And looking at it from the outside, I was like, okay, it's colonial looking, it's old looking. And first of all, Austin's a funky city. So I was just not really even planning on spending a ton of time, in the hotel.
Right.
Austin's a great city. I was going to go around, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as we arrive and we check in, the first thing the woman says, now, mind you, I have a daughter whose name is Sophia. She's 8 years old now, but at the time in 2015, she was 3. So she was accompanying me with my nanny on the trip. They were, of course, going to stay at the hotel the whole time while I went to shoot, um, my campaign. But she says, would you like to stay in the old part of the hotel or the new part of the hotel? And I thought, I'm thinking in my head, what does it matter? And she says, I'm asking because a lot, I'm not exactly sure how she worded it, but she basically said that the older part of the hotel was not as desirable. And I was thinking, okay,
Not
but
as
I don't know.
desirable.
It's not as desirable. And I'm thinking, what does that mean? Is it rustic? Are there no toilets? Like,
Yeah.
how rustic are we talking about? But I didn't have a problem with it. And so I just said, no, that's fine. We'll stay in the old part. And so my nanny was like, no, Mister, I want to stay in the new part. And Anna is from El Salvador.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, no problem. She needs her time off away from Sophia when we're not together. So she's staying in the new part. We're staying in the old part. We get into the old part of the hotel. We unpack. I put Sophia on the bed. She's eating goldfish crackers. And I'm in the bathroom, just doing like a normal routine, washing my face. And I hear this sound. And I peek my head out of the bathroom, and Sophia's on the bed. She had been watching TV, eating the goldfish crackers in a little bowl on her lap, and she shook herself to where the goldfish crackers went all over the bed, and she's frozen and her hands are in midair, and she's just kind of looking with her eyes wide. And I thought, okay, she's probably scared that I'm going to get mad because she's made this big mess. And I'm like, honey, what's going on? And she's like, and she points to the corner of the bedroom that we're in. And I'm just like, what, honey, what is it? And she's like, he keeps watching me.
Oh
And I'm
shit.
just like, what? And so she doesn't even touch the crackers. She like brushes them off of her lap. She rolls over and she comes in the bathroom with me. And I'm just like, I don't know what she's talking about. I take the time to clean the bed. She doesn't want to go to bed. Now, this is like 2.5 hours after we arrive. And I don't notice anything in the room. I don't feel anything. She doesn't want to go to bed. We leave the TV on. And yeah, it starts to feel really, really cold. It's just really cold in the room. It's just really uncomfortable. She keeps clinging on to me. Sophia, she just doesn't, she keeps talking about how she saw a boy in the corner of the room. That was all she kept saying. And I said, is that what made you freak out? And she said, yes. Next day, I take her, it's my shoot. So we end up falling asleep. that was that. I end up going to my shoot. I'm in the studio. The photographer's there with his assistant and a lighting guy, and we're waiting for the makeup artist and other people to arrive. The photographer's name is Mike Prado. I hadn't worked with him before, but he's a very well known campaign photographer, fashion photographer. And he's like, so, like, what's your room like? And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, this hotel is really haunted. And I was like, okay, my daughter spilt her goldfish crackers and could not sleep all night and was freaked out. And he's like, well, supposedly my suite is where a bride committed suicide before her wedding. So they start trading stories about what's gone on in this hotel and how there is a little boy who was the son of a colonel, because apparently I guess that hotel used to be like the city hall meeting room. I mean, my expertise on the hotel isn't completely
Yeah.
clear, but he apparently had been chasing a ball while they were in a meeting, while his father was in a meeting, while they were like in a town hall meeting, and he died. He slipped off the steps and broke his neck and died. And so they said that the story is that he, comes around the hotel and he haunts the hotel. And there are many rooms, I guess, with, all this history. But so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, do we have the room, like what room do we have? And maybe I should have stayed in the new part of the hotel. And let me ask Anna. And of course, I do my shoot. I go home. I ask Anna, and she's like, "No, Mrs. Tara, I had a great night. I drink hot chocolate. Everything's fine." And I'm like, "Figures," because she's in the new part of the hotel. But I do remember that night, just Sophia was terrified and she didn't want to sleep in the room. And she got to a point where she was hysterical. And we left. I called the reception, the front desk, and it was 2 a.m. And actually, the same receptionist who checked us in was kind of like, I understand. We've made arrangements for you to go to the Four Seasons. That was it. I didn't even last 3 nights. I didn't even last 2 nights in that room. But all I know is my daughter was super terrified and uncomfortable. She kept claiming that she could see him, this boy in the corner of the room, and I couldn't feel anything, but I could feel her fear,
Mhm.
and that was enough for me because I think children are very sensitive and perceptive with these things. And the fact that she wouldn't eat, she wouldn't sleep, and she kept having this terrible feeling to where she wouldn't let me go anywhere in the room without her was not it was enough for me to be like, Four Seasons, all right. I'm sorry, I know I was like a lot of run-on sentences and what's going
No,
on and
no,
on, but I had
no.
to go with my train of thought.
Does your daughter still remember that
Oh
experience?
yeah, absolutely. And I remember, even when I look back at that picture, because I took a photo of her where she's sitting there like frozen, like this with the goldfish in her lap. And she's like, Mommy, I was scared. And when we got to the Four Seasons, I remember that, we packed everything super fast in a rush. We went down, the bellman took us down. They even tried to bribe her with milk and cookies. They were like, no, can you just stay in the room for a little bit? No. She was like, no, 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 Mom, I don't want to stay. I don't want to stay. I thought, okay, if my daughter's refusing chocolate milk and cookies,
There's
you
something
know,
wrong. Yeah.
something's really wrong. And we end up, going to the Four Seasons. I could feel this weight come off me. Like right when we got into the Four Seasons, it was warm, it was comfortable. I mean, listen, this is not a shout out to an overpriced 5-star hotel or anything, but it was a huge atmosphere change and a huge relief. And it it all of a sudden, yeah, it became bearable. And then I started to realize the difference in how I felt when I was there versus
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was a weird, strange weight. There was definitely a presence of something there. Even if I couldn't see it, I could feel it. And the fact
Yeah.
that Sophia was, I have never seen her that way before, and I haven't seen her that way since. But I do believe that children are extra perceptive when it comes to feeling and seeing things. And I believe her, and I believed her. I wasn't about to be like, no, those things aren't true. sh I absolutely believe that what she felt was
Mm. Yeah, we were talking with another author, Stephen Dunn, who's a novelist, and he was talking about how his 4-year-old boy constantly says, "Hey, there's people inside the walls," which so it's like, and it's always hard to draw that line of like, oh, kids being kids and also kids seeing actual things, you know. So it's just
right.
like, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Is he punking me or is he trying to take this?
yeah.
I could really see though from her face and from her expression that she was terrified. I mean, it wasn't just like, because usually if something scary happens, their
Hmm.
kids are pretty resilient too, right? Like they'll be like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, whatever, back to the goldfish, back to whatever was on TV. Like I said, even milk and cookies, she was like,
yeah.
no, no, no. I don't care if you bring me Sour Patch Kids or whatever. Like she was not staying another night in that room. And I remember she was clutching my leg in the bathroom. And like I said, it wasn't something that I could see for her, but I could see in her and feel from her that
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is some
yeah.
kind of instinctual thing that just wasn't making her feel good. And I think that sometimes, my mother's Thai, and I can remember growing up, and my mother would always use these. I know, like um,
Did you grow up in LA?
chupacabra. No, I grew up in San Francisco,
Okay.
actually. But you know how they have like the boogeyman or
Yeah,
chupacabra? Like every culture kind of
yeah,
has their
yeah.
thing. And my mom is funny because she would, if I would say a part on my body would hurt, she would tell me like, oh, like there's Thai spirits, like there's spirits in you that they're trying to communicate with you, and I'm like, through my hands, come on, mom. But
Yeah.
my mom has always been very active that way in telling me about bad juju. Like for example, I get this from her as well. I will not buy anything pre-owned, or I
Oh
won't
my
shop
God.
like in a thrift store
So
because I
this is that
believe.
Asian, this must be an Asian parent thing.
And then did you? Because my mom's like,
Yeah.
no, no, you're gonna feel their
Yeah.
juju. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but it's on sale, mom, and it's super cheap, and it's a brand new Prada. She's like, but you don't know, they could have had misfortune. Like she
Hmm.
really believes that objects and everything has, a life and spirits, and that you will take that on. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dang, those were on sale and designer, but she
Yeah.
won't let me buy anything.
When I was a kid and I would like find something on, on the street or somewhere and bring it home, they'd be like, "No, this is going right in the trash."
Put it
Like,
back.
yeah, put it
Exactly.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a lot of like old stories like that in Italy? Like, I was just wondering whether what it's like to be in the old like Catholic city like Venice. You know, if there's like a whole like whole mythology of spirits and ghosts and hauntings and stuff or not.
There absolutely is. And what I found, one of the first things that I found really lovely about being in Italy is, first of all, there is really, and of course, I noticed this hugely during the lockdown and the pandemic, is that for the most part, people here are very respectful to each other. There was no like manners go very far here. Everybody really doesn't want to like upset anybody or be offensive to anybody. Manners are really important here.
Hmm.
And it's a funny thing with language too, because now that I'm having to speak Italian, I've really seen the differences and how much, for example, being from Los Angeles, being American, the way that obviously we introduce ourselves more formally, or to older people or but amongst friends, we talk in a lot of slang. And
Hmm.
so even my friends here are people that I know that can speak English pretty well. I've realized that I get them a lot of times looking at me like, what, trip, you're tripping. Where are we going? And I'm like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
don't trip means like,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't worry
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
it. They're like, oh, I thought we were really taking a trip. But people here are very superstitious. a lot of superstitious beliefs here. And I can remember the first time I ate dinner. My husband's an attorney, and I ate dinner with a bunch of attorneys at their houses with their wives, and everyone was just very, and I spilt the salt, and right away I took it and was literally like, boom. And I didn't know
Yeah.
if I was getting someone in the eyes or wherever, but it was my instinct to just throw the salt shaker. And I realized someone's wife's behind me, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to blast you with salt. And she was like, no, no, no. I'm so glad you did that. So we ended up getting in this long conversation about her telling me never put a hat on the bed. And she told me something interesting. She said, never discuss your dreams before 12 noon the next day, because Italians absolutely believe they will come true. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't heard that. I mean, the hat thing is universal, but
It is?
I haven't heard that. Yeah. Don't you remember? Did you see Drugstore Cowboy, where like Matt Dillon's all upset because someone left the hat on the bed? They're like, "Oh no, this is how everything's gonna go bad because someone put a hat on the bed."
I didn't see that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. The hat thing is universal, but no, I didn't. I never heard about the dream stuff.
And I always want to talk about my dreams when I first wake up. This is something that my mother, with her Thai, juju, voodoo, not voodoo, but my mother is really big into dream interpreting. And
Yeah.
one of the things that she always used to tell me was, I would have dreams about my teeth a lot.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Asians have a lot of references to teeth. And so once I heard that about how Italians, yeah, they're very, very strict on that, not talking about anything that you've dreamt about until after 12 o'clock the next day. And I thought, okay, but
That's
I need to
wild.
tell you what happened to me. Because
Like you wake up from a bad dream and then like your husband's like, "What's wrong?" And you're like, "I can't tell you till noon."
no, you know what's funny? And so I'll just be like, well, and he'll go, no, 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 no. Like he just bolts and like leaves he
Oh
won't even
no.
listen. He won't
Oh
even
wow.
listen. But I was actually discussing with you earlier how I had lived in Marlena Dietrich's old
Yeah.
house. And I was like, let's channel her, let's talk to her. And my best friend was like, come on, girl, you can't just call up spirits like that. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was a beautiful place, and it was one of my favorite houses. And, I've always been interested and fascinated with other people's stories as well. I absolutely do believe with my whole heart that we have so many openings, open
Right.
doors, and
Yeah.
all ports, in all parts, there are ports to different worlds. I absolutely believe that we are not the only ones here,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I think
Um,
some of us are more sensitive, of course,
yeah,
children.
children definitely. Yeah, and it's funny that the temperature thing always trips me out because my family lived in the house near Griffith Park,
Oh,
and there was a little hallway you had to walk to get to the main bathroom, and like nobody who came over the house, relatives, friends, wanted to use the bathroom because they were like, as soon as we walk there, it's like 10 degrees colder, and it freaks us out. And it
wow.
was the wildest thing until one night my dad came out of his bedroom and he said there was a figure like in front of the bathroom, right where people were freaked out about. And we were like, holy shit. Yeah, but it was
Wow.
like every random person who came over were just like, no, we don't want to walk over there. And they could be people who are sensitive, not sensitive, whatever. It was just everybody was like, we don't want to walk over there.
I had an experience actually. I had tweeted about it. Maybe it was a month and a half ago. I was cooking. What else am I doing? I think I was making a curry. And I have a photo of my beloved toy fox terrier who he passed away in on Christmas of this year. Um, and Chopper was with me for 17 years. I mean, this dog lasted longer than two of my marriages. I could go on and on. Okay. Chopper prevailed through everything. 17 years I had Chopper. So he was a huge part of my life and we were very
Yeah.
close. And, Chopper, I mean, he had a passport. He probably went to about 50 countries with me. I had fans. I can remember doing signings. There are two chapters dedicated to Chopper in my memoir, Sinner Takes All. He was kidnapped and held for ransom. I mean, he
What
could have
the?
written a book. He probably did write a book behind my back. I don't know. But, we were deeply connected. We were deeply
Yeah.
connected. And I have a photo of him on my fridge when we were both young and beautiful, as Lana Del Rey would say. And so when I cook and I make curry, I always ask Chopper if I should make yellow, green, or red curry. And he always tells me to make yellow. And everyone's like, okay, Tara, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one day, one night, I smelled him. I smelled him. I'd never experienced anything like that. I've had friends tell me, no, you're just really projecting. You just really want him to be there. Chiwan, I'm telling you, I got a whiff of him. It must have only been 2 seconds, but I got this smell of his fur.
Wow.
He was there. I felt it. I believe he was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think that, I just think that we do have spirits, or I believe that people come back or things come back and we can feel them in brief moments. And I think that that's what the temperature changes are. That's what the smells are. I think that they come in different,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, different ways. And um, it was him, I swear. It was him. It was not the curry that night.
So you said you're working on a new book?
I am. I have not. I am working on a new book. I've not thought of a title yet. It's basically where my memoir Sinner Takes All, the memoir that I had published in 2009. That basically talks about my life growing up from childhood, how I got into the adult industry, my former career into there, and then the second follow up that I've written, that I started writing in 2015, really chronicles the journey after. So I guess life after
Yeah.
my career in adult, and just my transition here to Italy, and just basically, having the courage, I guess, to kind of just leap off the diving board into the deep end and start over, if you will. Just kind of how we take a lot of different paths, throughout
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sort of just kind of how where I've ended up now.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, so is it almost done?
it
How
is.
far?
So it's done. It's completed. I am writing a little bit, I guess, of the aftermath. No, I'm so dramatic. Um, I'm not really sure how to end it, because I do
Yeah.
feel like one of the things, I don't know if you as an author experienced this too, or maybe I'm just, I'm a Padawan. You're a Jedi, so
Yeah.
you're way more advanced than me. But I think that it is hard for me to sort of figure out where I want to leave off, or where I
Mhm.
want to end this, or kind of what note I want to end it on. Um, initially, when I thought I had finished, I left it on a very high note.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that there's a part of me, I don't know if it's healthy to kind of read the criticism of your work, but in
Yeah.
doing that, some of the criticism that I got from people was that I made things a bit shiny and happy. And some people felt that I didn't really divulge enough feeling, or of my feelings, or if I've ever experienced anything dark or hard, not to gloss over it, but to kind of really purge and talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's vulnerable, right? You feel
Yeah.
vulnerable.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You don't want to be judged. You don't want people to, and I don't want people to ever walk away or leave. I don't want to ever leave the reader with this feeling of despair or heartache or pain after reading something that I've written. I think that you want to evoke feelings, but you don't want to be like, oh, that was heavy,
Yeah. No,
right?
I get it. I get it. I get it.
So,
Um,
so that's where I'm at. I'm sorry, does this feel
um,
like a therapy session? You're like,
go on.
Tara.
um, if you have something you would like to read, you want to share with us.
Well, I don't have anything. It's funny, I don't even have my book, but I thought if anyone out there is listening and isn't familiar with my first memoir, Sinner Takes All, it's basically a look into my childhood. I grew up the oldest of four kids in San Francisco, and I always, the number one question I always get is, how did you end up in the other Hollywood? How does a young girl at 23 end up in adult? Because it seems like I had kind of a normal childhood. And basically throughout Sinner Takes All, I discuss my childhood, growing up in Berkeley and San Francisco, which is where I was raised. Like I said, I'm the oldest of four kids. I did go to college. I went to nursing school. I worked briefly as a nurse, also as a paramedic, and my story starts when I arrive in LA. I get discovered by Playboy magazine. So Playboy magazine was my portal into the industry, and I
What year
started
was that?
1999. I started back in
Wow.
Nam. No, I'm just kidding. In 1999. And, my experiences in the industry uh, throughout, chapters 3 to 7 in Sinner Takes All, I discuss my first time working on camera, my first time shooting a Playboy centerfold, my first time, working with directors on an adult film. And for me, the goal of my memoir at that time was to kind of really give it not just a behind the scenes look, but really talk about, obviously the industry has changed a lot. That's a whole nother long podcast you and I could have as well. But I see such a, I would always get young men and women asking me, how to enter the adult industry. And I felt like I don't want them to just think it's like lights, camera, action, you make all of this money. I really wanted to highlight some of the ups and downs that I went through, everything from signing a contract that wasn't in my favor, going through bankruptcy. This sounds like a behind the music in kind of a way, but just basically all the pitfalls and things that happen to you in the adult industry, but it's also relevant in the mainstream industry as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Those contracts are like music industry is filled with those contracts and yeah.
And we all sign one in the beginning, and some artists are lucky that they escape unscathed. They have good guidance, they have good managers. Part of my journey in Sinner Takes All also talks about what it was like for me on a personal level to have a relationship, but also to be a world famous adult film star. I mean, this is not easy.
Yeah.
It's not like I could just date a guy and he wouldn't be like, "Hey, Paradise, I know
Yeah.
you."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, there was just so many things. So some of it is, very entertaining. There is also a few chapters where I discuss, like we said, just all of the things that I strongly advise anyone who wants to enter the entertainment industry, especially the adult industry, understand that one of the biggest things you face, that I have faced, but have come out of, and it hasn't affected me in a negative way, is the stigma. There really is a stigma that is forever attached to anyone that does any type
Right.
of adult work or,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
because
yeah.
I find Rome actually super, I stay away from Rome. Rome for me is like,
Wow, why is that? Is it from experience or it's from what people have told you?
no. So here in Italy, the one city that has always kind of made me like creeped out and I'm not a fan of, and I've been there a few times and I always have the same like haunty, creepy feeling, is the Vatican City, Rome.
Oh God.
Rome in
Yeah.
general. So Rome for me is like LA and New York in a head-on collision. It's like the crazy chaos of New York where everyone's trying to see like all the touristy stuff and there's just people cluttered around everywhere. Um, but then it's kind of zombified LA where everyone's just like, yeah, everyone moves a little bit slower and the service is just really bad and you're just like, ah. So Rome for me, for some reason, I've had to take. I took some friends there that visited from France. They wanted to go to the Vatican City, Another time, I took a friend there and he brought his mother's ashes because he wanted
Mm,
to go there. And
yeah.
both times, I don't know, walking around the Vatican, looking around at night, it looks beautiful, but the statues, I feel like they burn into me. I just never have had a good feeling in the pit of my stomach when I walk around there. I can't really put my finger on it, but Rome just and the Vatican City has never left a nice impression on me. It's always just made me feel very eerie, and I'm always looking
Yeah.
around. I just have never felt truly comfortable there. Whereas another city, one of the first cities I visited when I came to Italy was Venice. And I love Venice. Venice is very tranquil and beautiful and romantic and serene. And I've always heard, like, oh, you can hear my bells chiming actually. That's the other thing. The city that I live in, the bells chime here like every 15, 30 minutes. So even though I wouldn't say I'm religious, I do kind of like, okay, okay, okay. I just want to make sure that like all the saints are happy,
Yeah.
I want all
Yeah.
the saints to be happy. So yeah, there's definitely, Italy is such a it's a mix of there's still so much old traditional traditional traditionalness. That's terrible English here. I
Yeah.
really feel that here. It's something that's also a little frustrating. There's times where I kind of wish that I could usher some people like to be a little bit more progressive or into the new,
Yeah. Of
but
course. Of course. Of course.
I feel the old world here very much. And Hollywood, I've been to what is that, Magic Castle?
Yeah.
I asked Irma, the haunted piano, to play. I think I asked her to play Closer by Nine Inch Nails. I made a very strange request for her. So, and I've only been there once, but I was like, Irma, can you play Nine Inch Nails? Haunted piano.
Everyone's like, what?
Irma was like, give this girl another drink. No, send her through one of the magic doors or one of the magic
Yeah.
hallways.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So funny.
Um. Um. Thank you again, and
Thank
it was
you.
great seeing you and hearing you. And thank you for this story. And I hope your daughter will be able to share her ghost stories to her next generation and all that because I don't know. From my childhood, it's one of my most precious things is all the ghost stories people told me. It was like,
Did you ever feel scared though? Like, has it stayed with you in a negative way where you feel scared? Because I often wonder if she thinks of, because I will tell you, she does. She's very afraid of the dark. She
yeah.
always
I
has to have a
think
light on.
if it had been like once or twice, it would have been something that I remembered as scary. But over the course of my life, it became a thing of like a weird comfort. Like, oh,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so there are times when I actually tell people I miss ghosts. Like if
Ah,
time goes by without saying anything, and I'm like, oh, I miss it. Like it was a weird comforting thing. Like there's something beyond that, beyond me was a comforting feeling.
like looking out for you.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Which he could have been for her too, and that's something that we'll never know. And that's something that I think in that experience and in that moment in Austin at the Driskill, I was kind of trying to calm down the situation and say, baby, maybe he's there for, just to say hi to you. Maybe he wants to play. And she was like, lady, no, so
yeah,
the fact that she had that terrifying feeling tells me, okay,
yeah.
so.
Four Seasons should do like a promotion. Like we're more expensive, but we have less ghosts.
Right, exactly. Well, the funny thing is when we arrived, they were like, another one bites the dust. I swear that was probably playing, they were like,
Uh,
okay, here's another one from up the street. But Anna, she had no issues. So I guess my advice would be to stay in the new
new
part.
part, a new
Stay
part
in the
of
new
Driscoll.
part of the Driscoll, not the old part.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you.